I didn't start this research because I believed in a miracle. In fact, I started with the opposite bias. For years, I believed that all vegetables were created equal, that the advice to eat the rainbow was the beginning and end of nutritional wisdom. If it grew from the ground, I thought, it was good for you. Full stop. No questions asked. But about 7 years ago, I began noticing something strange. I was working with a gentleman named Richard, 67 years old, who was doing everything right. He walked 3 miles a day, maintained a healthy weight, and his vegetable intake was exemplary. He was proud of his diet. Every morning, he blended a smoothie with bananas and tomatoes. For lunch, he enjoyed a simple salad with bell peppers. Several evenings a week, he would roast white potatoes and eggplant alongside his protein. Richard came to me not for nutrition advice, but for his hands. He was a retired carpenter, and his hands were his identity. But they had begun to betray him. His knuckles were stiff, swollen, and ached constantly. He assumed it was simply wear and tear from a life of physical labor. But during our conversation, he mentioned that his stomach hadn't been quite right either. Nothing severe, just a vague sense of bloating and discomfort that he had learned to live with. He had normalized it. I asked him to walk me through a typical day of eating in detail. As he described his vegetable-heavy diet, a different hypothesis began to form. It wasn't just about the nutrients he was getting. It was about the signals his food was sending to his body. I suggested a simple 6-week experiment, not a magic cleanse, just a removal. We removed 3 specific vegetables from his diet and replaced them with 3 others. 6 weeks later, Richard walked back into my office and did something he hadn't done in years. He made a tight fist. Then he opened his hand wide. The swelling in his knuckles was visibly reduced. He looked at me and said, "My hands don't hurt." And my stomach, I forgot what it felt like to not think about my stomach. This wasn't a miracle. It was biology. It was the body's innate intelligence finally being allowed to do its job. We weren't treating his hands. We were turning off a chronic, low-grade alarm system that had been triggered by his otherwise healthy diet. If you are over 50, 60, or 70, you have spent your entire life being told one thing: vegetables are good, and they are. But as we age, the rules change. The standard dietary advice, eat more plants, is a beautiful but dangerously oversimplified sentiment for the aging body. Here is the deeper truth. A vegetable is not just a collection of vitamins and fiber. It is a package of chemical information. Every plant contains compounds designed for its own survival, to ward off pests, to resist fungi. These compounds interact with your body. They signal your cells, they trigger enzymes, they activate genetic switches. For a 30-year-old with a robust digestive system, these signals are manageable. The body can interpret the information, use the good, and discard the confusing noise. But as we cross into our 50s and beyond, our physiology changes. Digestive enzyme production declines. The gut lining becomes more permeable. The immune system, now seasoned and sometimes oversensitized, can misinterpret these plant signals as threats, triggering a cascade of inflammation that doesn't just stay in the gut. It travels to our joints, our blood vessels, and our brain. Today we're going to talk about the 3 vegetables that, for many aging bodies, are sending the wrong signals. And then we'll discuss the 3 vegetables you must eat, the ones that send the right signals, that calm the nervous system, and that restore order. Let's start with the first vegetable you should never touch. The first vegetable, eggplant. The beautiful, glossy eggplant. It's a staple in Mediterranean cooking. It's hearty. It soaks up flavor. But for the over 60 crowd, eggplant represents a primary problem. Eggplant belongs to the nightshade family. Nightshades produce compounds called alkaloids, specifically one called solanine. Solanine is a natural pesticide produced by the plant to protect itself. In the human body, solanine can integrate into cell membranes and inhibit an enzyme responsible for breaking down neurotransmitters. More importantly, solanine has been shown to degrade the integrity of the gut lining. When you eat eggplant, particularly the skin, you're introducing this compound into a digestive system that may already have a compromised barrier. For someone with arthritis, this is a direct line of communication to the joints. You don't have to have full-blown arthritis to feel the effects. You might just feel stiff. You might notice your grip strength isn't what it used to be. Here's how it works. You eat eggplant. The solanine survives digestion, especially if your stomach acid is low. It irritates the gut lining, causing the tight junctions between your intestinal cells to open. Immune cells see solanine as an invader. They release inflammatory messengers called cytokines. These cytokines travel through your bloodstream and settle in your joints, causing stiffness and pain. By removing eggplant, you stop the signal at the source. The gut calms down. The inflammatory cascade halts. Your joints can finally clear out the inflammatory debris. So, what should you eat instead? Royal trumpet mushrooms, also called king oyster mushrooms. These are fungi, not plants. They don't produce solanine. Instead, they're packed with beta-glucans, a type of fiber that doesn't trigger inflammation. Beta-glucans actually train your immune system, helping it respond appropriately rather overreacting. Royal trumpet mushrooms are also one of the few non-animal sources of ergothioneine, a unique antioxidant that scientists call a longevity vitamin. It accumulates in tissues under high oxidative stress, protecting your mitochondria, the energy factories of your cells. Slice the thick stem into medallions, score them in a crosshatch pattern. Sauté in olive oil until golden brown. They have an umami flavor that satisfies the same craving as eggplant, without the inflammatory compounds. The second vegetable, raw kale. If there's one vegetable that has been worshipped by the wellness industry, it's kale. And I'm here to tell you that for many people over 50, eating large amounts of raw kale is one of the fastest ways to stress your thyroid and slow your metabolism. Kale is a cruciferous vegetable. It contains sulfur compounds called glucosinolates. When you chew, chop, or blend raw kale, an enzyme called myrosinase converts these glucosinolates into goitrogens. Goitrogens interfere with the thyroid's ability to uptake iodine. Your thyroid needs iodine to manufacture the hormones that control your metabolic rate. Here's the critical distinction. Heat deactivates myrosinase. When you cook kale, you destroy the enzyme that creates the active goitrogens. Steamed or sautéed kale is generally safe, but raw kale smoothies, raw kale salads massaged with lemon juice, that's a different story. As we age, thyroid function naturally declines. It becomes less efficient. Adding a high load of raw goitrogens to an already struggling thyroid is like putting sand in the gas tank. Metabolism slows, weight creeps up, you feel cold when others are warm, your hair thins, you're fatigued. Here's what happens. You blend raw kale into your morning smoothie. The blender thoroughly mixes the enzyme with the glucosinolates, creating a potent goitrogenic cocktail. You drink it. These compounds travel to your thyroid and block the pump that moves iodine into the gland. Without iodine, the thyroid can't produce enough hormone. Your pituitary gland panics and sends out more thyroid-stimulating hormone, which can cause the thyroid to become enlarged. By removing raw kale, you lift that blockade. If you have adequate iodine intake, your thyroid can resume normal hormone production. So what should you eat instead? Savoy cabbage, cooked. You still need those sulfur compounds. They're vital for your liver's detoxification pathways. You just need them without the raw enzyme. Savoy cabbage provides glucoraphanin, which converts to sulforaphane, one of the most potent activators of your body's master antioxidant switch. When you cook Savoy cabbage, you deactivate the problematic enzyme, but the glucoraphanin remains. The beneficial bacteria in your gut can then convert it for you, without the thyroid side effects. Shred it finely. Sauté with garlic and olive oil for just 3 or 4 minutes until it wilts. You get the liver-supporting benefits without the thyroid stress. The third vegetable, raw or undercooked kidney beans. This one is the most dangerous of the common offenders. Kidney beans contain an extremely high concentration of a lectin called phytohemagglutinin. Lectins are carbohydrate-binding proteins. Think of them as Velcro. They're designed to bind to the sugar molecules on the surface of cells. In nature, this helps the plant resist being digested by insects. In humans, this is problematic. Phytohemagglutinin is measured in hemagglutinating units. Raw red kidney beans contain between 20,000 and 70,000 units. Proper cooking, boiling vigorously, not slow cooking on low, reduces this to safe levels of 200 to 400 units. But eating just a few undercooked beans can cause severe food poisoning. Now consider the subclinical level. What if you're eating beans that are slightly undercooked? What if you're eating sprouted kidney beans with active lectins? The phytohemagglutinin binds aggressively to the lining of your small intestine. It disrupts the microscopic finger-like projections that absorb nutrients. It causes them to distort and malfunction. It also triggers a release of histamine and other inflammatory compounds directly into the gut wall. For the aging individual, this is a direct assault on nutrient absorption. If your gut lining is damaged by lectins, you cannot absorb the protein you need to maintain muscle mass. You cannot absorb the B12 you need for your nerves. You cannot absorb the magnesium your heart needs. Here's what happens. You consume undercooked kidney beans. The lectins bind to your small intestine. This causes intestinal cells to release inflammatory cytokines. It disrupts the tight junctions, leading to increased intestinal permeability. The binding physically blocks nutrient transporters. Even if you eat a healthy meal later, you cannot absorb the nutrients. By removing undercooked kidney beans, you stop the mechanical irritation of your gut lining. Inflammation subsides. Nutrient absorption improves dramatically. So what should you eat instead? Tempeh, fermented soybean cake. Fermentation is nature's predigestion. The mold used to ferment tempeh produces enzymes that break down the complex proteins and neutralize the lectins. The phytic acid, which blocks mineral absorption, is also significantly reduced. Tempeh is a complete protein, containing all essential amino acids needed for muscle maintenance, critical for preventing age-related muscle loss. It's rich in isoflavones that support bone density and arterial flexibility. And because the lectins have been neutralized, tempeh sends a calming signal to the gut. Slice it thin. Steam for 10 minutes to remove bitterness. Marinate in tamari, garlic, and ginger. Pan fry until crispy. You get the protein and satisfaction without the lectin risk. Now let's talk about blood sugar. White potatoes, particularly when mashed or baked, have a glycemic index higher than pure table sugar. For a senior with declining insulin sensitivity, a baked potato sends a tsunami of glucose into the bloodstream. The pancreas has to release massive amounts of insulin to manage it. Over time, this exhausts the insulin-producing cells. Replace white potatoes with Japanese sweet potatoes. While still sweet, they have a lower glycemic load. They're rich in a specific fiber and a compound called kaiapo. Studies show kaiapo can significantly improve glycemic control by improving insulin sensitivity. Here's an extra tip. Cook sweet potatoes, then cool them. This process creates resistant starch. Resistant starch travels to your colon and feeds your good bacteria, which then produce short-chain fatty acids that improve your insulin sensitivity at your next meal. Let's discuss the gut-brain connection. The gut and brain are in constant conversation via the vagus nerve, the longest nerve in the body. Inflammation in the gut creates noise on this line. It sends distress signals to the brain, which can manifest as anxiety, brain fog, or depression. When you remove inflammatory vegetables, you quiet that noise. But to actively restore the connection, you need fermented vegetables, specifically lacto-fermented sauerkraut or kimchi made from cabbage. Fermented vegetables are teeming with live bacteria. When you eat them, you're consuming the metabolites those bacteria produce, including neurotransmitters like GABA that can signal the vagus nerve directly. You're essentially sending a calming message from your gut to your brain. The result is a subtle but profound sense of calm. The wired and tired feeling diminishes, sleep deepens, brain fog lifts. Let's talk about joints. One of the primary complaints of aging is joint pain. We often reach for supplements but ignore the foundational nutrient required, sulfur. Sulfur is a critical component of the cartilage and the fluid that lubricates your joints. Asparagus is one of the richest sources of sulfur-containing compounds. It provides precursors your body needs to maintain connective tissue. When you remove inflammatory nightshades and add asparagus, you shift the balance from breakdown to repair. The sulfur is incorporated into your joint fluid, making it more protective. Joints feel more cushioned. The grinding sensation softens. Let's discuss energy. As we age, our mitochondria become less efficient. They produce less energy and more free radicals. This drives aging fatigue. Beets are powerful for combating this. They're high in dietary nitrates. When you eat beets, these nitrates are converted by oral bacteria into nitrites, then further converted in your stomach into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide relaxes your blood vessels, causing them to widen. This increases circulation, allowing more oxygen and nutrients to reach your mitochondria. It specifically improves blood flow to the brain and muscles. By removing vegetables that cause inflammation and adding beets, you perform a cellular tune-up. Stamina increases. Senior moments become less frequent. Blood pressure trends downward. Let's discuss detoxification. The body's ability to neutralize environmental chemicals and metabolic waste declines with age. This isn't because the liver is failing, but because the signaling pathways that activate liver enzymes become sluggish. Broccoli sprouts wake this up. Not mature broccoli, but 3-day-old sprouts. They contain 20 to 100 times more glucoraphanin than mature broccoli. This converts to sulforaphane, the most potent, naturally occurring activator of your body's master antioxidant switch. When sulforaphane activates this switch, your cells produce a cascade of protective enzymes, your body's janitors, mopping up free radicals and neutralizing toxins before they damage your DNA. When you remove inflammatory vegetables and activate this pathway, you give your body an unmatched ability to clean house at the cellular level. Let's discuss vision. Age-related macular degeneration is a leading cause of vision loss in people over 60. It occurs when the central part of the retina degrades. Spinach addresses this. It's loaded with two specific carotenoids, lutein and zeaxanthin. These compounds accumulate in the retina, forming a pigment that acts as internal sunglasses, filtering harmful blue light and neutralizing free radicals. However, these compounds are fat-soluble. Eating raw spinach provides very little to the eye because they're trapped within plant cell walls. When you cook spinach in olive oil, you break down those walls and release the nutrients. The fat acts as a carrier, transporting them to the retina. You're actively building a shield for your vision, preserving your ability to read, recognize faces, and maintain independence. Now we arrive at the #1 benefit, the master regulator, the real secret. We've talked about removing inflammatory triggers. We've talked about adding specific powerhouses. But if you take only one thing from this discussion, let it be this. The method of preparation is more important than the vegetable itself. The ultimate goal for the aging body is to cultivate a healthy colony of bacteria in your large intestine. The primary way vegetables promote longevity is not through the vitamins they provide directly, but through the fiber they provide to your bacteria and the short-chain fatty acids your bacteria produce from that fiber. The most important of these is butyrate. Butyrate is the master regulator. It's the primary fuel for the cells lining your colon. It strengthens the gut barrier, preventing leaky gut. It signals the immune system to be calm. It turns on genes that suppress inflammation and turns off genes that promote cancer. Here's the circle back to Richard. He didn't heal his hands by eating a miracle vegetable. He healed his hands by stopping the noise, removing inflammatory triggers, so his gut could process the fiber from good vegetables into butyrate. Butyrate calmed his entire immune system. With inflammatory cytokines no longer circulating, his joints could finally heal. How do you maximize butyrate? You don't eat it directly. You eat the prebiotic fibers that feed butyrate-producing bacteria. The vegetables we've recommended, cooked and cooled sweet potatoes, asparagus, cooked greens, mushrooms, provide a diverse array of these fibers. By following this approach, you're not just eating vegetables. You're gardening your microbiome. You're cultivating the specific bacteria that produce the molecule, signaling your entire body to age slowly, calmly, and resiliently. Here's how to implement this starting tomorrow. For 30 days, do your best to avoid eggplant, white potatoes, and raw cruciferous vegetables like raw kale and raw broccoli. Be extremely cautious with undercooked kidney beans. Ensure they're boiled vigorously. Each day, incorporate royal trumpet mushrooms, cooked Savoy cabbage, and tempeh. Add cooked Japanese sweet potatoes, asparagus, beets, broccoli sprouts, and cooked spinach as often as you can. Pay attention to how you feel after 7 days, after 14 days, after 30 days. Notice your hands. Notice your digestion. Notice your energy. A few critical warnings. Do not make sudden dramatic changes if you are on blood thinners like warfarin. Many of these vegetables contain vitamin K, which interacts with these medications. Consult your doctor before making significant dietary changes. If you have a history of kidney stones, be cautious with high oxalate vegetables like spinach. Introduce them slowly and ensure they're cooked. If you have a diagnosed thyroid condition, do not eliminate raw cruciferous vegetables without first discussing with your healthcare provider, as medication adjustments may be needed. Stop immediately if you experience any adverse reactions. This approach is about gentle recalibration, not force. Here's my question for you. Which of these 3 vegetables do you eat most often? Is it eggplant, raw kale, or kidney beans? Let me know in the comments. If you found this information valuable, please subscribe. Share this with someone over 60 who might benefit. Remember, your body has an extraordinary capacity for healing when you stop interfering with its signals. The right foods, prepared the right way, allow that innate intelligence to do what it does best: restore balance, reduce inflammation, and keep you vital. The science is clear. The choice is yours. Choose wisely.